Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. That was about to go wrong. How are you doing this morning? Today, we're covering 4 ways to grow immediately today, right now. And I think we desperately need to hear this today. Then we're going to cover how an artist collected 10,000 strings of hope and what that really means and how that went on display. We're going to cover our AI authors, the real deal. And of course, we're going to be covering in today's show a morning cup of gratitude. Share today's show with somebody you think might need to hear a dose of gratitude or an encouraging word on how to grow. Tag someone, share this video, and spread the love. We're going to go ahead and start today with a morning cup of gratitude. Let's do this thing. So I want to hear from you in the comments today what you are absolutely most grateful for. I love starting the day with gratitude. I love starting the day with gratitude with you because we are communing. We're sharing community with one another, and we're sharing what gives us alive. And if we ever see ourselves out there, like I did with Carrie Pate yesterday, a fantastic gal, we had a great conversation yesterday. And because of this show, we know each other from this show. We've encountered each other because of this show. Because of this show, we had interesting things, more interesting things to talk about than a passing water cooler conversation. That's one of the things I'm grateful for, is first off, that fact that because we share gratitude with one another, and because we share a bit of our personal lives, we can have more meaningful conversation. But further, I'm grateful for Carrie, who had an honest amount of inquiry when we talked yesterday. She got vulnerable. She shared some things, and I love that. Superficial conversations have no home here with me, my friends. I don't know about you, but I do not like those superficial conversations. So that's one thing I'm grateful for. Another thing I'm grateful for today, our awesome mortgage company, the mortgage firm, is just persistent. We've had this deal that's gone up, gone down, gone left, gone sideways, and they're just on it, and they continue to persist. So I'm grateful for them. I'm also grateful for pre-TMJ. Yes, I've been having these weird TMJ jaw pains for the last several weeks. And we finally are down to the fact that it's TMJ. Why am I grateful for this? Why would you be grateful for TMJ? Why would you be grateful for that moment? I'll tell you why I'm grateful for TMJ. It has forced me to do more juices. It's forced me to do no solid cheat foods, which includes no cheat foods. It's basically forced me to make healthier choices and overall less calories overall. And so this jaw pain has absolutely made me address my nutrition. And in trying to keep the swelling and inflammation down, I've had to actually focus more on what I'm eating. So that's been a phenomenal gratefulness benefit. And last but not least, it's made me more selective in how I am delivering my communication, because I can only be talking for so much before my jaw hurts too much to even talk. So I've had to be more selective in my communication. So I'm grateful for this jaw pain to actually make me more selective and how I'm communicating to people. And last but not least, what am I grateful for? Bam! I'm absolutely grateful that this is the 3rd day in a row that I've done my morning workout, morning stretches. It's so far 2 days in a row, and tonight will be the 3rd day in a row that I do my evening workout. So I'm thankful for 3 days in a row of consistent working out. That's more than I have done, in all honesty, in a long time since COVID started. So I'm grateful for that. I'm already feeling the benefits of both jaw pain causing me to choose my foods more wisely and the workouts themselves have actually got me feeling sprightly and limber. So I'm thankful for those things. What are you thankful for? I'm just making these notes. Boom. What are you thankful for today? Let me hear it in the comments, the things that's stirring you today, that's making you grow, which is our topic today, and become a better person. So that's it for gratitude. Tell me what you're grateful for in the comments, and let's talk about other news. So in other news today, an artist has collected 10,000 strings of hope. 10,000 strings of hope. So what is this all about? And this is a beautiful piece of artwork. Here we go. Let's do that. Beautiful piece of artwork. And come on, my little thingy. There we go. Beautiful piece of artwork that I really think you got to check out. long story short, the artist, a Japanese artist by the name of, I'm going to butcher this, by the name of Chiharu Shiota, probably butchering it, has an installation piece of art in Berlin's Koenig Gallery or Koenig Gallery in Berlin. The installation is titled, I Hope. And the artist said this: in the middle of COVID, it is hard to imagine a hopeful future. But imagination for the future is very important for human beings. This is what the artist Shiota told the Modern Met. And so the artist asked people around the world to write them a letter of hope. And as those letters came in, and the artist and Japanese artists are diligent about following through, they absolutely read every single letter of hope. And this inspired the artist to then do an installation piece of art with red string, 10,000 pieces of red string, connecting the letters of hope in an installation in St. Agnes Church. And they selected the church because they believe that church is where people often go to pray in a hopeful manner. So I'm going to put this link down here. The artist then said, my theme of this installation piece is existence in our absence. How are we existing, hopefully in hope, in the absence of one another? I've dropped the link in here, and you've got to see the thumbnail. It is an absolutely beautiful piece of installation artwork. I don't know if you spend your mornings or evenings like I do, but looking for positive stories, looking for beauty in the form of beautiful art. Heck, in a small piece of other news, the moon is on the horizon right now, nearly conjuncting with Jupiter and Saturn. And if you look closely, Neptune is right on the horizon. It's beautiful. Do you look for beauty in the morning? Do you look for beautiful things in the early hours? I hope you do. I hope you look for beautiful things. So check this piece of art out. You can see in the thumbnail right there, there's a wireframe boat. And I think the boat is actually meant to represent this ship of hope. And then the strings kind of flutter down and connect to the letters of hope. And it's just a gorgeous piece. So it's called I Hope. Check that out. That's your first piece and second piece, considering the moon, of other news. Let's talk about artificial intelligent authors. Yes. How good is artificial intelligence at writing? And why does this matter to people in State of the Spark? Why do things like this matter to Spark citizens? Well, number one, why we talk about AI news is I want Spark citizens and those who consider themselves just sparked in general, inspired, to not be intimidated by the coming waves of technology, whether it's AI, whether it's space. The thing that Spark citizens offer in a way that few other personal development brands or avenues of thought or philosophies or ideologies, few schools of thought prepare people for any context whatsoever. I personally am in awe and curiosity of what is coming in AI, but I also want to position anyone who is inspired in the vein of Spark to know that you are relevant and what you have to offer is relevant no matter what the technological wave. You guys know I'm pro technology. And for those of us who are not engineers, for those of us who are not mathematicians, for those of us who are not Six Sigma black belts who's going to help manufacturing, for those of us who are more in the humanities, which a lot of you are. Some of you are investments. Some of you are in just service-based small businesses. It's going to be a long time before you're replaced, but more than anything, it's going to be about never when your ideologies and the soft skills you bring, sparking vision, igniting success, exploding significance, and radiating purpose. These are things that AI will never in the foreseeable future provide for humans. This is why I'm training Spark citizens with our freedom framework, spark vision, ignite success, explode significance, and radiate purpose. This is why I am establishing the philosophies of Spark in the form of Spark values, which we've been covering, and I'm slowing down on growth, but we're going to explore that today. But why I talk so much about these personal development, I believe we have a unique place in the human organism. I believe we have a unique place in the human species with our soft skills. Our technical skills are valuable. Our soft skills are far more valuable. our ability to lead people in positive communications, our ability to lead people in how to conjure inspiration and vision, our ability to lead people in overcoming their own internal challenges to create more successes, our ability to cultivate a heart that takes what we know about vision and success and making it about others, our ability to take pause from the human organism, the human species, withdraw perhaps a little bit and to reflect on that which is making us better. So why do I talk about AI? Why do I talk about space? Why do I talk about cutting edge technology? Because I want you and I completely comfortable with who we are in the midst of this crazy, crazy, but awesome and beautiful world. That's why I talk about AI. Some people were asking the other day, Grant, well, I mean, I nerd out about science in general, but I don't pretend State of the Spark is necessarily a technology company. We're a human technology company. We leverage the technos, the architecture of the human being, the tecton, the architecture of the human being to leverage ourselves to make a deeper impact in the world. So why do we talk about AI? Let's talk about the artificial intelligence author and how far it's come along. So there's an article titled, AI wrote this article. AI has advanced so much in the area of natural language and research that it is impressing and fooling most of you. In fact, most of the articles you see on Forbes now, not most, an increasing number of the articles you see on Forbes, Inc., TechCrunch, a lot of them, more and more, are being written by artificial intelligence. And an author, a real author, Jurika Dujmovic, wanted to push machine learning and natural language learning to as far as it could possibly go. So she actually wrote an article titled, this article is wrote by AI. AI wrote this article. And Jurika, actually the actual human author, wrote an intro paragraph or two and then a closing sentence, but everything in between was written by an artificial intelligence algorithm that has natural language learning and research capabilities. So Jurika actually wrote the intro as well as several questions that she posed to the AI to answer. It was in the vein of business investments. And so the rest of the article, which was about business, came from the AI. And what we're finding is that, well, with analytical or boring business type content, you cannot tell AI apart from a human writer. I couldn't. I read the article, and I would say, honestly, I couldn't tell if a human or a computer wrote this. So what is the place for human writing now? What could be written that we are certain only humans could do? Well, to my point about opening about AI, people like Spark Citizens, people like us who are focused on human development, human dynamics, the humanities in general, and I don't know if you've ever connected the humanities to the human, but they're very closely connected. They're what I would call the soft skills of the human species. Writing for that, writing for inspiration, writing for creative development. Now, there is AI that is trying to push the limit on art and painting, on writing fiction. That's great. That's available to us, but it's going to be a long time, I believe, before AI can actually match when a human who truly crafts a well-written piece of inspiration, driven to move and stir other humans. It's going to be a long time before that happens. Let me give you the article. You can check out and read for yourself how far along AI has come, and it is very impressive. Let's do that. And then there should be a little bit of a thumbnail there. No, that robot in the thumbnail didn't actually write the article. It was actually just a scriptive algorithm that wrote it. But that's how far AI has come along. And it is impressive, but it's showing us what I believe are the limits. And we will not only find limits, we'll find ways to interface where the human can call on the AI to fill in the gaps, but the human can continue to focus on the human needs. And I would even say this is a post-human shamanic role. The role of true, skilled, and experienced coaches, personal development teachers, those who are focused on helping cultivate people, as we are with State of the Spark, and even in our service-based businesses, each of them operate on the ideology of elevating its clients. Education is like a huge one. Our ability to interface with AI, I think, will make a better world and will have a special place as what I consider kind of a post-human anthropological shaman, the ability to guide people, or call it the priesthood, if you will, or the teacher layer. Whatever you think of it in terms of ushering people who might be lost into how to interface with this world. So that's my piece of other news, and that's how far AI has come along. That's what's going on with 10,000 Strings of Hope, and that's what's going on with the moon, Jupiter, and Saturn. That, my friends, is other news. Let's talk about 4 ways to grow. So a few years back, I attended a TEDx conference in Tampa. It was TEDx Tampa. And I heard a speaker from Chile talk about the idea of expansionism. And talking about entropy and talking about growth and expansionism, quite often there's pushback in the world. The world's moving too fast. The world's growing too quickly. And these statements, though they're true in one context, if you actually look at the universe and you look at the world, in fact, I don't know if anyone knows this, but this icon right here, this represents the Higgs boson particle. It's the expansion of particles once they have begun. It's a natural law of our universe to expand. Yes, on the universal intergalactic level, all bodies are moving away from each other at an accelerated pace. Of course, growth. But as we talked about the other day in terms of heat death and entropy, entropy itself is a natural phenomenon from what we call, in general, growth, expansionism. And so in human dynamics, when we become overwhelmed and stressed with how fast our world is and how fast our pace is and everything that's going on around us and all the new options and all the new feeds and should I pay attention to TikTok and should I actually join this group and should it's exhausting. And when we get exhausted, we tend to want to stop growing. We associate expansionism and growth with industrial sludge. We associate expansionism and growth with Seaspiracy. We watched Seaspiracy this last weekend, and it was moving. It was moving to see how the industrial fishing complex actually works. We associate growth and expansionism with these things. And on the individual level, on the human level, a lot of these things are very tragic and do need to change. From an analytical, anthropological level, these are the pains of a growing species. And I wouldn't say we need to accept it, by no means. Not as a people, not as a sentient species, not as an empathetic species. We don't need to accept it. But one aspect we do need to accept is that there will always be a need to expand. And we have unfortunately expanded to being cruel to the other species on this planet. I believe as we move off-world, there is a threat that we move what's worst about us to other worlds and other planets and other galaxies. But I actually think we also will move what's best about us. Growth means that we sometimes expand industrially and harm other species on this planet. But growth also means that we learn from those experiences of what's right and wrong, and we find ways to improve it. This is my underlying appreciation of technology. It pushes the limits. It delivers a new layer of help and assistance to the people of this planet. Then it discovers what's wrong with it. It stress tests its own system, finds out what is flawed, and then seeks to improve upon that. If you try to escape the pace of this world by escapism, you begin the death process. Because growth is expansive. Anything you touch will, by nature, whether you like it or not, require that you grow in it. So yes, from State of a Spark perspective, we're talking about personal development. But the reason I'm talking about the universe and heat death and industrial expansion and human growth is because these things are ingrained in us at our very molecular level. As such, it vibrates up from an atomic level to a molecular level, to an organic level, to this unit we call a human, to this unit we call a city, to this unit that we call the species. If we try to defy that, we'll be defying nature. And what happens when you defy nature is you accelerate your disintegration. When something disintegrates, it accelerates. If you combust a wood pile, a pile of wood, it accelerates its decomposition. But if you put wood out in the sun, accelerate your own, what I call living death. This is why when we talk about integrity and we talk about becoming integrated in who you are and what you claim to do and gaining more knowledge and bringing more personal power to it, you make yourself more solid, more reliable to the people around you, but also more of a presence in the universe. And when you start to fight who you are, when you start to resist your natural makeup, you cause all sorts of suffering for yourself, all sorts of suffering for those around you. You become miserable, you become lost, you become frustrated, and you are no longer what we might call in flow. So, all of that is the backdrop to this one thought. Growth is a core value of Spark. Growth is a core value of Spark because we want to flow with our universe. We don't want to fight it. We don't want to be susceptible to it. We don't want to create the suffering that a lot of industrial growth has done, but we do want to come on the other end of that where we can provide needs for our people and our species at this level without causing the same level of damage, which is partly why we need to live off-world. Growth is a part of State of the Spark, and it's a core value because it is natural to the world around us. Growth is as real and as true as gravity. It's as real and as true as breathing. It has to happen or you're a dead person walking. If you know that phrase, dead man walking, you're just dead on your feet. You're fighting the natural order of things. And no, I'm not talking that you have to love Facebook. No, I'm not saying you have to love fast food. No, I'm not saying you have to love the rat race. Not at all. Those are some of the unfortunate results of an out of control growth cycle. But this TED Talk talked about embracing growth. One of the examples he gave is quite often when you see sculptures, you actually try to make them stable and you're always fighting the falling. So you build these square structures. He said you could build beauty by embracing it with dynamic tension. Dynamic tension is when you have something set up here and you know it's going to fall over eventually, so you lay it down. And that's how we build buildings. That's how we do architecture. That's how we build our philosophies in our life. Something safe and stable. He said you can prop things up with dynamic tension. Dynamic tension is when you have a cable here. Well, if you have a cable there, it's going to fall over. Or if you have a cable here, it's going to fall that way. But dynamic tension pulls an equal amount of tension both sides. And therefore, this thing can then stand. And he calls for this dynamic tension to be the values you live your life by. Growth is one of those values. You have to embrace it or you're going to be denying flow in your life. But some of the other core values also keep us level. For example, the Spark core value of freedom is another piece of dynamic tension that keeps us balanced without having to balance on one leg. It's two cables keeping us anchored to the earth, but helping us reach higher heights by having more than one dynamic value. It's called dynamic tension. So here's 4 quick ways I propose we begin to continue to embrace growth as a core value, as a natural order of the universe, but also keep our head about us, also keep flow about us. So I'm exploring growth more and more right now for myself and just sharing a little bit with you. But here are my 4 quick thoughts that I was thinking about this morning in my quiet time. And if you will entertain me, let's rock this. Number 1, always be reading. Obvious, right? Always be reading. C.S. Lewis said between every new book, read an old one. Now, how I've taken this before is, if you're going to read the cutting edge management book, make sure you go back and read a poem you love or a Bible you love or the Bhagavad Gita. For every new book, read an old one because the new one will recontextualize the old one. The old one will help you filter what's true and lasting in the new one. So I've modified this C.S. Lewis quote a little bit to say, between every new skill you read about or acquire, read a personal development book. Something on attitude, something on leadership, something on temperament, something on human dynamics, something on management. And if you need recommendations, visit us at the Facebook Goals and Gratitude group because I write personal curriculum for people, personal study lists, book lists. So feel free to ask over in the Facebook Goals and Gratitude group. So between every new book, read an old one, C.S. Lewis said, and I modify that to say a little bit, between every new skill that you need to read about or acquire, read a personal development book. You have to learn more about this human organism, this human species, and how to interface better with others and how to help usher them into interfacing better with others. Remember that leaders are readers, and I don't care if reading to you is listening to an Audible while you jog or run. I can't personally do that. I don't care if it's on Kindle, as Kiana does here in the office. I don't care how you read, but please, for the love of all that is holy, read. And no, I'm not talking about a short tweet. No, I'm not talking about your influencer. I'm talking about a concept. Read to acquire concepts. However you learn new things, do it. Number 2, If number one is always be reading, number two is dialogue to grow. Dialogue, not to establish your opinion, to grow. Dialogue, not to argue and make a point and to be heard, to be understood. No one cares. Dialogue to grow. Dialogue to learn. Dialogue to change yourself. When you're talking to someone, have a posture where you're looking to be changed. I hold an opinion, and I know that holding opinions too firmly, like a rock in a river, will eventually erode. Be water, not rock. Dialogue to change. Dialogue to understand the person speaking, not to oppose them. Whether you're left wing, you're often listening to the right wing in order where to critique them. If you're right wing, you're often listening to the left wing to critique them. Don't do that. That doesn't help anybody. Dialogue to understand them. If you understand them and you still disagree, that's fine. You're allowed to do that. You now are better equipped to handle that in the future. But if you only dialogue to combat, dialogue to inject, dialogue to insert, dialogue to assert, you're not learning anything. You're not growing. You can dialogue like that. That's a different core value, but it's not the growth core value. If you want to grow, dialogue to grow, dialogue to learn, dialogue to change, dialogue to understand. To understand. The last conversation you can recall having where it was heated. Did you learn? Did you change? Did you understand? And if not, it was a waste of hot air. You only have so many days on this planet. You are wasting hot air doing anything else. Number three. Number one, always be reading. Sidebar. Stephen King says he always has a fiction novel in his car in case he's waiting at a light, waiting in the post office, and he'll pick it up and read. Do you do that for your skill? Do you do that for your thing? He's an author. He's obviously reading to write. He's reading fiction to write fiction. But are you reading for your thing? Do you always have a book, and are you anxious and excited to go, oh, I've got a down moment. Let me read another 5 pages. Oh, I've got a down moment. Let me blast through this book. Always be reading. Number two, dialogue to grow. Dialogue to learn, change, and understand. Number three, stress test your beliefs. Stress test is an engineering term. When you think you've got a good rocket, as we have seen, I love how Elon Musk is making everyone see how many times he fails to land his rocket. I love it. He's unafraid to crash a rocket, and he's teaching us it's okay to stress test your systems. You're supposed to. Too much of this personal development coaching guru BS means you have to have it all together. Hey, look at my Instagram worthy life. Look at my picture perfect world. Hey, I got a bad hair day, man. It's just a bad hair day, so I got my hat on. I want to show you, warts and all, that you can make it too. And will I ever be an A-lister? Here's hoping. But I don't care about that. You got to stress test your beliefs. You got to be able to put the ugly out there and say, hey, does this work? We're working on right now, and it's on my list to do today, to actually order my new books. And the mistake I've made in the past is that I've just created this and said, oh, I callest thou good. Like God said it was good. Grant said it was good. I don't know that. So I'm going to stress test. I'm going to put in front of 8 people, and I'm going to get their honest feedback, and I'm going to change. Become an engineer of living. Become an engineer of life. And stress test. Me and Marissa have stress tested whether or not we could live on an island. And us uniquely, we couldn't, primarily because I feel like I'm wasting my life. Can we stress test? Hey, does this business model work? And does that business model work? Do your beliefs hold up under scrutiny? Quick story on this. When I was in a Pentecostal church, I was raised in a Pentecostal church, and I love my story and my background. But often the doctrine of hell would just make me scratch my head like, man, we don't treat this doctrine the way we treat the rest of the scriptures. We analyze the scriptures in certain ways, and we go to the Greek and we say, here's the Greek definitions of love, and we've got the 4 loves, filial love, blah, blah, blah. But when we talk about hell, no one really talks to me about the Greek, so I taught myself the Greek. Stress testing my belief about hell. And I realized I currently today do not believe there's a strong doctrine for hell. I've read it. I've read the Greek. I've read the commentaries, and we treat it differently. And that was very unnerving for me. It was very scary. And even my Christian friends are like, man, you're playing with fire. And my response is, I don't think I am. I don't think I'm playing with fire because I'm stress testing my beliefs. And I continue to stress test the new belief. Well, let me hear someone bring up a new doctrine that might improve my life. Are you looking, and here's the words you need to use from now on. Are you going through life not trying to prove yourself right? Are you going through life trying to disprove what is wrong in your head? And is that not fun? It's called disprovability, and it's a science term. Science is actually looking to establish that which is disprovable, because science acknowledges that it's really tough to prove things. It's really easy to disprove things. So we can actually start ruling out that which is not true or accurate. That's easier than establishing. This is why most things that when you start removing theories, you still only end up with a theory. For example, the Big Bang theory, the theory of relativity. Some things become laws, like the law of gravity, but it's a law only in a certain constraint, and it's a very clearly defined constrained circumstance that the law of gravity works only in a certain parameters. But beyond that, it's not theoretical. It does work all the time like this in these circumstances, but we are open to knowing that it's limited in its ability to explain things. Science looks for disprovability. This is how you stress test your beliefs. What do my beliefs need to be just like chucked? I was talking to Carrie, and we were sharing yesterday mindsets about money that we had to just flush down the drain. We have to disprove them. One of her thoughts was survival. I have to work really hard to survive. I don't believe that. I believe we have to work really hard to get to the next level. And even there, it's not necessarily the hard work. It's what the hard work makes you to be and to become. But there's still thoughts and paradigms that just got to get flushed. Stress test your beliefs, especially, which beliefs? Your limiting beliefs. Brian Tracy was big on nailing down your limiting beliefs. An example of a limiting belief is, I don't play in the street because I could get hit by a car. The belief of playing in the street is that I will get hit by a car. Is that always true? Well, no. I go jogging in the morning, and I found a new jogging route because I tested that belief. I can jog in this one neighborhood that has brick road, and there's no one driving on it at 4:30 in the morning. So I don't always get hit by a car. So I've gotten rid of this limiting belief. Now, I don't do it in rush hour traffic. Limiting beliefs can help you if you like the output. If you like the outcome in your life, limiting beliefs. Here's one: buy low, sell high. That one, I love the benefit of this limiting belief. You should buy low and sell high. And I know there's nuanced circumstances when you should probably bend those rules. And there's some flexibility, but look to disprove your beliefs. So number 1, always be reading. Number 2, dialogue to grow. Number 3, stress test your beliefs. And number 4, I love this one. You ready? Enjoy the mystical. Enjoy the mystical. Carrie and I were talking yesterday a little bit about faith, and we share some similarities in our faith backgrounds and some similarities in our journeys wrestling with ideologies. And how do you challenge your ideologies without throwing them away? And she was saying, man, well, what about these beliefs? And I know that these beliefs are not accurate in my life, but how do I not just throw the rest of Scripture away? And I challenged her. I said, enter the alternate dimension of enjoying mysticism. Mysticism is for that which is not disprovable. When something is disprovable, it's tangible. This is a pen. I can prove or disprove it. There's logics, and it might even change. And we could even say, well, it's actually plastic and ink. It's not really a pen. And then we could actually say, well, it's atoms. But we can prove or disprove. We can continue to disprove that fact. But if I say I have a spirit, that's a thing that's not really provable or disprovable at this time. So if we talked about stress testing your beliefs about that which is disprovable, that which is tangible and meaty, another way to grow is to also enjoy the mystical. And the way to enjoy the mystical is to embrace truth while being able to deny facts. Hey, man, I can read the Bible and differentiate. Well, hey, Grant, are you saying the Bible's not true? Oh, I would never say that. I think the Bible's true. I think trees are true. True. How could trees be true? That's the mystical. Let's talk about that. Well, Grant, you're just talking in riddles. Hey, guess what Jesus talked in? Jesus talked in, fill in the blank, parables. He talked in riddles. Buddha talked in riddles. It's called a koan. What is the sound of one hand clapping? It doesn't have an answer. It's not supposed to. It's supposed to make you pause and think. Enjoy the mystical because it's meant to make you reflective. Enjoy the mystical, and it should be playful. That which is not disprovable. Hey, man, I think I have a spirit. And someone comes along who's a complete agnostic atheist or atheist. Agnostics are kind of like, well, maybe. Atheists are like, no, that's just some BS. Well, maybe it's BS, and the conversation should be playful. I can't prove it. I can't disprove it, but here's the benefit in my life. Me and Carrie both shared a little bit about our testimonies. I would say that I am a follower of Christ, not what we today call a Christian, but I am a follower of Christ. And prove it. Well, I don't have to prove it. I'm not trying to prove it. It's just something that I enjoy. Well, let's playfully talk about it. Let's play. What is the benefit in your life? And how is it shaping you? And how is it growing you? The mystical are things we have no proof for, but we enjoy believing and they make our lives better. The mystical are the things that AI is not going to replace anytime soon. The mystical is the arts. Why does 10,000 Strings of Hope in the art gallery that we touched on in other news, why does this art installation called I Hope, why does that stir us? Sure, there's math. Sure, there's neuroscience. My good friend David Gruber is studying neuroart. Yes, there is science for it. But there's also something mystical about it. Someone said, what is truth? Someone said, the answer was, I don't know, but I know it when I see it. How do you not throw away the faith of your youth, but not give into useless, disprovable facts and discussions and dialogues and debates? How do you not get sucked into that? Enjoy and play in the mystical. Enjoy the mystical. Number 1, always be reading. Number 2, dialogue to grow. Number 3, stress test your beliefs, man. And number 4, enjoy and play in the mystical. Life gets way more fun. Listen, if you need any help or support at all whatsoever, look for tools and training at stateofthespark.com. If you want to just dialogue on these things, visit us at the Facebook Goals and Gratitude group. But remember the mission today, igniting lives of explosive significance, starting with your own.